Okay, so the last video we kind of were talking about the luxury arts, and we'll start off talking about this ewer from 796. It's in the form of a bird. It's brass with silver and copper inlay. So the main body is made of brass, but it has copper and silver inlay in it. And it's a Suleiman ewer, I believe. Or Suleiman might be the name of the artist, actually. So they had very talented metal workers, and they made this elaborate ewer, like the one pictured here. And it's basically a pitcher for pouring various liquids. This ewer was actually signed and dated by its maker, so I believe Suleiman is the name of the maker. And the bird ewer resembles kind of a freestanding statuette of a bird. And you can see the holes in the beak and the mouth are where it would be poured from, where the liquid would pour from. And the engraved decoration on the body combines, natural feathers, which you can see here and here, with abstract motifs, and Arabic calligraphy is also present. I believe this might be some calligraphy right here. You can see the love of pattern once again being incorporated into this piece, and it basically wraps around the entire surface, much like the walls of the mosques that we've looked at that are completely wrapped in pattern. You can see that here on this piece too. And every surface is just completely covered, and there are rosettes. There's one on the chest here. There's one on the neck, or several on the neck, I believe. And it features an inscribed collar. So this might be the collar here that's inscribed. So that is writing there. And similar motifs appear in Islamic textiles, pottery, and architectural tiles. And it just shows the flexibility of the Islamic patterns and designs. And calligraphy can be, replicated on many different forms, basically. Buildings, textiles, and ewer. So we'll take a look at the ivory that they also had. So there were many centers of production for the luxury arts, and it was typically supported by the court system of the caliph or ruler. So, expensive items were always needed by the court, and so they had a center of production. And Abd al-Rahman II was a descendant of the founder of the Umayyad dynasty in Spain, and he became ruler when he was 22, and he actually changed his title to caliph, which was unusual because the rulers in Spain usually did not use this title because they didn't want to start trouble with the caliphs in the other Islamic territories of Mecca and Medina. But Abd al-Rahman III was pretty pompous when he took over when he was only 22 years old. So think back when you were 22 years old, you might have done something similar, right? But he actually built a new palace for himself, and his successors at Medina al-Zahra, about 5 miles from Cordoba. This palace complex housed a lot of the royal workshops where luxury items were made, and they made it for the caliph's family and for use as diplomatic gifts, including richly carved ivory boxes, which is what we can see here. Spanish Umayyad ivory pyxides, which is singular for pyxis, a cylindrical box with a hemispherical lid. So you can see the word pyxis here. And pyxides are singular. Usually featured motifs of symbolic royal power and privilege, and musical entertainment. And actually, one thing about this that I was a little bit confused by, there are actual depictions of fauna on this piece, and I thought with Islamic art, fauna and the depictions of people would not be allowed, but maybe since this is not really a religious piece, maybe since it's more of like a casual piece that would be in a home, maybe that's why they've gotten away with it in this piece. But definitely I don't think that you would find anything like this, obviously, anywhere near the mosque, because it is actually showing people here and fauna here. So So we can talk about Qurans next, the art of the art of calligraphy in Islamic art. Calligraphy is ornamental writing, and it really held a place of honor in Islamic culture. Calligraphers tried to make the scripts in their Qurans the most beautiful they possibly could. They spent a lot of time making these books by hand, and passages from the Quran adorn not only the pages of books, but also the walls of buildings, different objects, decorative objects, as we've seen throughout the chapter. And it required a lot of training to learn the writing and the calligraphy, and it was considered a holy task because the calligrapher would have been making holy books or Qurans for the masses, basically getting the word out there to the people of the religion. And they had a saying, actually, that purity of writing is purity of soul. And that's a common Islamic saying. And only in China does calligraphy hold as elevated a position among the arts. So it's very, very important to Islamic art to have a really refined calligraphy. So Arabic text actually predates Islam and is written from right to left, which is opposite of our writing, of English writing. And the earliest preserved Qurans date to the 9th century. Some Qurans are bound into books, and others are just singular sheets inside of a box. Most early Qurans are written in the script form called Kufic, and named after the city of Kufa, basically. And this was one of the renowned centers of Arabic calligraphy. Kufic script is quite angular, with uprights forming almost right angles with the baseline. And really the usual practice was to write with consonants only, but to facilitate recitation of the Quran, or actually speaking it out loud, such as at a sermon or something, scribes often indicated vowels by red or yellow symbols above or below the line. So that might be these little red symbols here, which might indicate vowels. So we'll take a look at the blue Quran with 15 lines of Surah 2 from Kairouan, Tunisia, 9th to 10th century. It's ink, gold, silver on blue dyed vellum. So vellum, I believe, is made of skin. So it tends to last longer, like sheepskin, I think, is a common animal to use. So here's an example of the Quran from the 9th to 10th century. It has blue dyed page, and with heading and opening lines of 18 surah of the Quran, which are basically like verses, I think. The 5 text lines are black ink with red vowels, and below are a decorative band incorporating chapter titles in gold and ending in a palm tree finial, which I am not really totally seeing any palm tree finials. Maybe that's on the next slide. Nope. And this practice of highly decorative religious scripts parallels what's going on in Britain and Ireland, where they're creating these highly decorated religious manuscripts. And one thing is to remember is that stylized human and animal forms that populated those early Christian manuscripts do not appear in the Quran. The Quran obviously has rules against showing fauna and human forms. So pretty much just ornamentation, decoration of like pattern, and the actual writing itself is going to be present in Qurans and most Islamic art. Not all, but most. We can take a look at a ceramic dish, actually, with an Arabic proverb from Nishapur, Iran, 10th century, painted and glazed earthenware. It's about a foot in diameter. So potters in Nishapur in Iran and in Samarkand in Uzbekistan developed a simple type of glazed dish with calligraphic decoration. So this is actually writing that is going all the way around the rim of this dish. And it's called Samarkand ware. And it's an example here that we were looking at. It's quite large. It's from northeastern Iran. And to produce the dish, ceramicists form the shape of local clay and then immerse the dish in white slip. And slip is basically watered down clay that they make a glaze out of. You dip the piece in the watered down clay, which is a slip, And then the slip dries, and then the painter or calligrapher wrote Kufic text in black or brown paint around the rim of the dish. And it's very angular, and it basically creates kind of a circular border that fills the full width of the rim. And then over the top of this, once it dried, they put a transparent glaze over that. They would fire it, and that glaze would give it a nice attractive sheen and also protect the dish. And the text on the dish reads, "Knowledge is bitter tasting at first, but in the end it is sweeter than honey. Good health to the owner of this dish." So because the Arabic words are so similar, recently many scholars have translated the words a little bit differently. But in either case, this proverb is definitely practical advice for secular life, and would have appeared to cultured individuals such as successful merchants and stuff like that, or the upper crust of society at the time. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up the early Islamic chapter, or portion of the chapter 10. And then in the next week, we will cover later Islamic art, and take the quiz on that. So I'm going to try to divvy up the quizzes, have a smaller quiz for each week, early Islamic and then later Islamic art quizzes. So be ready for that.